All right, Joe, we continue on our deep dives around college football tonight. Today, we land on USC. Let me go ahead and start with this. I have talked about USC twice. This will be my second time in 2 weeks. And we talked about this just a minute, okay, earlier. But I want to bring it back up. This is not the USC team that I think people are going to be expecting. I think people need to be a little bit cautious. Here's why I do think teams need to be a little bit cautious. I do think that they made one of the best hires defensively of all offseason, hiring DeLeone and Blake from UCLA. I also think that they got a lot better personnel-wise on that defense. Alex Grinch has been a guy that when he was at Oklahoma with Lincoln and at USC that a lot of people questioned, did Lincoln Riley really care about defense? Well, Joe, I'm going to tell you something. They've added a lot of really good pieces on the defensive side of the football, and they've really got, how do I want to say this? Overnight, they changed schematically on everything that they do. DeLeone Blake is a guy that's going to send pressure at you all night. You know, I had an offensive coordinator that I talked to this week tell me when watching DeLeone Blake on defense, it's very NFL-ish, like how they just come at you for all different types of directions. They're going to blitz a lot. You know, we saw that also in their spring game. What I think about USC is, Joe, I do think that they are the, how do I want to say this without being hyperbolic? USC to me might be one of the more intriguing teams in college football because I think people expect, oh, it's just Lincoln Riley. Their defense is going to suck. And that might be the case. But when I look at them and I say to myself, they added guys like Nate Clifton from Vandy. And everybody's like, that guy's from Vandy. Okay, well, he was one of their better defenders. And one of the better defenders, if you don't watch the film, take out the stats, even with some of the stats, was one of the better defenders. They added a lot of pieces in their secondary, I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute. And I know offensively they're going to be fine. Joe, I don't know if they're not going to be a little bit more of a handful than people are giving them credit for.
I think you're giving them a little bit too much credit. Now, I have said I am a very big DeLeone Blake fan, and I think that this is a total 180 from the situation that they had before with Alex Grinch. I do believe that the future direction of this defense is going to be rapidly improving. But you can't improve as much as they need to going into their first year in the Big Ten overnight. It is going to be a multi-year process in order for them to get the bodies to consistently compete with a conference that runs the ball, runs multiple tight end sets, will punch you in the mouth every single play. Frankly, a lot of these teams don't even really have the quarterbacks in the Big Ten to air you out. They're going to try and run the football. Teams like Minnesota, teams like Iowa, Rutgers, the teams that we know that have to rely on the ground game to get the ball moving forward because they just don't have the arm talent. This isn't the Pac-12. This isn't the Big 12. It's a very, very different culture that they're going to be facing. With that in mind, though, again, I agree with you. I'm not in the boat, surprisingly, of other people that believe that USC is going to be a shit show this year. After I did my notes, it's clear to me that they did make improvements, and DeLeone Blake is good enough of a defensive coordinator to make them competent, competitive, physical, and tough. But I just don't know, looking at their schedule, if they've got the juice to go punch for punch with teams on their schedule like Michigan, who they have to travel to, like Wisconsin, like Penn State, who comes to them. Washington's up in the air. And I really don't think that they're going to beat Notre Dame this year because Notre Dame defensively is very, very physical, and they're just not going to match up very well. There's still question marks, but I'm not fully there yet to say USC takes a step forward. This is an 8-4, 9-3 team. Simple as that, because they are stepping into a difficult situation in a new conference.
All right, I'm going to counteract you with one point. Everybody talks about USC. You know, USC can't, you know, the style that they play is not for the Big Ten. I agree with that. Joe, a lot of the teams that they play that I look at right now, Joe, are you 1,000% confident if we believe and we're right that this defense might be better that Penn State can score with them?
Yes.
Like Penn State can't score with them. If they got in a shootout.
You're okay. So here's where we're having, this is where I'm like really not on board with. you're overvaluing their offense. Like Miller Moss played one football game, man. Like it's the same thing we did with Jackson Arnold. I can't get into the boat just yet. I got to see the kid play.
No, but
And they lost multiple receivers.
But Zachariah Branch is there. They got 3 guys that are seniors from the portal. You legitimately had Lincoln Riley and DeAnton Lynn going after, excuse me for forgetting his name, but the UCLA wide receiver, 6'3", 220. And it was a dogfight. Georgia gets into the mix. USC winds up winning it. Joe, I'm going to tell you something, and I've been telling you this for months, and everybody has poo-pooed me on this. I don't think that they're better offensively. I do think that they're going to be run better, though. Meaning, I don't think you can replace a Caleb Williams in reference to what he does, okay? If I'm going to give Caleb Williams one thing, you can't replace the talent that he is. But Joe, why does their offense get better when he's
they played Louisville in a bowl game where there were multiple players out? The bowl games don't mean anything. We need to stop using the bowl games as context for anything. We need to stop using them as context. They mean nothing.
I will make a bet with you then. Miller Moss is going to be better than you think that he is.
I'm not saying he's going to stink. I think he is perfectly good enough to be slightly above average. Is that the mark for success?
Yeah. If you want to ask the question, can I tell you why? Can I tell you why? Because the
Lincoln's offense, it's not.
Joe, what offense do you think that he runs? What legitimate offense do you think?
But look through the string of guys and the string of quarterbacks that have gone through there. The worst quarterback that he's had was Spencer Rattler, and he got replaced because he wasn't playing good enough for them. And he was playing at a slightly above average level. They lost games that year.
Fair, but you're talking about the one time that he's not been able to legitimately take a quarterback and develop. Because I could also make the argument that he took a kid in Jalen Hurts that legitimately had issues for 3 years. The greatest of all time, and Nick Saban, could not help this kid legitimately be accurate enough. He goes to Lincoln. He's a Heisman contender. By the way,
Jalen Hurts was a physically gifted athlete. Miller Moss is nowhere near that.
Completely missed what I just said. Completely. Do you remember Jalen Hurts when he was at Alabama and he gets replaced by Tua? Why? Because Jalen Hurts has a massive issue at completing simple passes. And in one offseason, he takes him to somewhere that nobody really realistically thought that he would get. Joe, they were throwing the ball more than people even realized. They thought that they were going to run it all over the place, and they were going to be a team that's going to legitimately be more of a spread them out, triple option type of team, and they threw the ball all over the place. Look at Jalen Hurts now. You talked to Jalen. He was on a New Heights podcast, talked about Lincoln for 30 minutes. Right, about like everything that he did. I understand what you're saying with Spencer Rattler. That's fine. I also think that if I'm going to make a decision when you have multiple quarterbacks that are in the system, why does Lincoln Riley of all people go with Miller Moss?
I also, by the way, that question has not been fully answered yet. Jordan Maeva could still start, and I know that someone's going to come screaming into the comments and tell me I'm a dickhead for saying that, but I don't know.
UNLV for people.
The UNLV kid, I actually would start the UNLV kid over Miller Moss. I think he's a better athlete, and I think he provides a lot more juice for this offense. But,
Joe,
but this goes with what I'm trying to say, though, is that there could potentially be a situation where mid-season Maeva takes over for Miller Moss. I don't think it's as solidified as everyone makes it out to be. Why would you bring in that kid who was an all-conference quality player?
Why would you not go after a bigger high-name kid in the portal if you're Lincoln Riley when Miller Moss just went off? I remind you, Will Howard was a guy that was going to be committing there, and at the last minute, Miller Moss said, no, you will not be coming here.
I don't think we know for certain that his decision to go Ohio State was more based on him wanting to go play for somewhere that was going to compete for a national title.
Stop that. You legitimately had the top people that are reporting and recruiting talking about him committing to USC. The next night, literally the next night, Miller Moss goes cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and all of a sudden, everybody's like, well, something just happened there. Stop that.
Ohio State swooped in aggressively and quickly on a number of guys.
You're a damn fool. You're a damn fool if you believe that.
Are we forgetting that Ryan, the whole NIL saga that happened this offseason with Ohio State and all the money that flooded in suddenly?
So everybody that was reporting was wrong. Okay.
I don't think that just because a kid was on a visit and was considering it does not mean he was 1,000% committed. I never saw anything that said he was. Will Howard is a lock to go.
One reported. I'll never forget it because LSU. I'm just going to be honest with you. LSU was having conversations with Will Howard. Please, God, type in Will Howard USC. See what comes up.
Why would? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that if anything, that's more of an implication that how the market perceived Will Howard and how USC probably perceived Will Howard. And then Ohio State was the only school. This is what I'm getting at, though, is that I think
why does Ohio get the benefit or the credit to some extent, and then you have two of the best quarterback coaches in the country going after Will Howard?
I think that the reason why, and this is why I think the most truth of it is that Ohio State was the only program that was going to give him more of a direct commitment that he was probably going to start.
Yeah, because the night after Miller Moss went stupid.
Miller Moss says that Lincoln Riley is a terrible coach if he makes his decision off of one bowl game that he wants.
No, he's not, but he's seen the kid beat out a 5-star that was there. The kid goes to Boise State. Maybe Malachi Nelson wasn't good enough. Maybe that's fair. But, Joe, here's what I do know. Y'all can Rudy Poo on Lincoln Riley all y'all want to. Offensively, even last year included, I think that had a lot to do more with Caleb Williams trying to do too much that people don't want to get him credit for. You legitimately, and me and you both had this conversation about them in Notre Dame. How bad was Caleb Williams? How bad was he?
How bad was the supporting cast around him?
Please just answer one of my questions.
No, because you ask leading questions on the show all of the time. So no, I'm not. I'm tired of answering.
It's not a leading question.
It is a leading question.
Game that was played. He was asshole. Joe, midway through the season, Caleb Williams stopped running the system, and he had no other choice. Lincoln had no other choice. There were videos of him and Caleb getting into it on the sidelines. This offense is going to run smoother now that they're going through a system. There's a reason game plans are enacted. Okay, so
that is such a far more complex.
Lincoln Riley, for the first time
that is a far more complex issue than you're making it out to be. It's not just because Caleb Williams didn't want to run the offense. It is a complex issue that we don't have the context to fully understand. But I think what is important to sit here and say, and I'm going to say it, this might be one of the worst offenses that Lincoln Riley has had except for maybe his first couple of years at Oklahoma, which I can't even remember who was in that grouping off the top of my head. This might be one of the worst offensive groupings that he has. I'm not knocking Zachariah Branch.
Hello.
I'm not knocking Zachariah Branch. I think that he is an incredibly gifted player, but their running back room it's good. I don't think it's as good as some of the playmakers that were there before. Marshawn Lloyd was just a 3rd-round pick. We can't forget that. 3 guys left this offseason. Brendan Rice was drafted. We also had
in the 7th round.
Dorian Singer left in the.
His dad's Jerry Rice. Come on.
Dorian Singer, who was supposed to come in and be. Yeah, I wasn't a big Brendan Rice fan either. Dorian Singer was supposed to come in and be this huge, big next Jordan Addison type guy. He takes a step backward, transfers to Utah. Mario Williams also transfers to Tulane, I believe. I'm not saying that the offensive grouping is bad, but again, where is the not the improvement, but like what evidence do we have to say here that this offense is going to be better other than just one bowl game against a bad defense with multiple starters out against Louisville?
Because, and this just my belief, I think Miller Moss or whoever it is will stay inside the offense and run the offense as it is constructed to be run more than Caleb did. You know what made Caleb great in 2021 or 2022, excuse me? What made Caleb really great? Yes, there were highlights of him, the improv. What did he do 95% of the other times?
Improvise.
No, the fuck he did not. You know that that's not true. Stop. You know that that's not true. He
60%
ran.
of the time he was improvising.
Joe, stop. Come on.
I'm like that. You act like
No.
that's not like an insane.
You
Hey.
mean to tell me for over 500 plays he improvised? It was all him and not Lincoln Riley. Meanwhile, we have two other Heisman Trophy winners that did this. Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts. Why were those offenses better?
I don't understand what evidence you have to prove to me that Miller Moss.
Baker Mayfield pulled down Georgia's pants in a playoff game and spanked that ass. You want to know why?
But is Miller Moss Baker Mayfield? I don't know that.
You didn't know who Baker Mayfield was before he got to Oklahoma.
Nobody knew who Miller Moss was before he suited up and played in a goddamn bowl game. And he's got a bunch of sophomores, true sophomores, as most of his offensive weapons this year, who are all very gifted. I will say that I like Deuce Robinson.
You just love Notre Dame too much. You hate USC too much.
No, don't throw that. Oh.
Uh-oh.
Can you hear me? I got so mad I smacked the table. Don't just throw the Notre Dame thing in there. Don't just
You're a Notre Dame fan.
No, I'm an LSU fan. You can't see the hat. USC
You're a Notre Dame fan.
Shut up.
The truth is, all right, you can disagree with me. I think that they're going to run better offensively. I think things will get smoother. By the way, you talked about the running back room. Woody Marks is there.
Woody Marks is a good football player, but like, are we acting like that? This is
Woody Marks was running dudes flat over.
You have this horniness for Mississippi State. I don't understand what it is.
No, okay. Please God,
he's a good football player. Did the words "bad football player" come out of my mouth?
I think him and Lincoln's offense might be scary.
Okay, I want to just get back to we're going in a lot of different directions here. I think
Riley Leonard threw 4 interceptions versus USC.
They didn't play USC.
I don't know, but I'm seeing.
Oh, he's trying to say that when they play USC, that's not going to happen. To succinctly say what I've been trying to say, I think their defense improves. I think it's going to take time, and you know what? They've recruited really well, better than my expectation along the defensive line for the 2025 class. So
I agree with that.
I give credit where credit is due.
I think they've done better on the offensive line. I think their center and 2 interior guards are going to be a little bit better than people expect.
Monheim's is a pretty good player for them, and I want to break down his tape from a draft perspective, but he's been highly touted for multiple years at the college level.
Yep.
I stick with, if I were to pin a projection on this, Blake, 9-3 is the ceiling, but I think hiring D'Anton Lynn aggressively raises the floor to where the worst that they're going to be is 8-4. I don't think that the floor.
So then, who do they upset?
Well, I just named their most difficult matchups. I mean, I think that if you go 9-3, I see the losses as Michigan, traveling to Michigan, to Penn State at home, and to Notre Dame at home. And so I think
them beating LSU in the opener.
Oh fuck! I forgot to play LSU. I don't know why I always do this. I write down the schedules and then
you always miss one big team.
Yeah, I always miss one of the.
All right, I would concede with you. I don't think Michigan is a foregone conclusion to what you're making it, because I know defensively they're going to be very good, but the talk out of Michigan right now, they're not very. I mean, this Alex Orji thing has gotten very weird.
I would argue. Well, his name's Orgy. It's a terrible joke. It's a bad joke. But Penn State, I would argue, is probably the better situation for them to steal, because Penn State has to travel cross country to come play them. It's a little bit of a tougher trip. You know, they got to come their way and all that good stuff. So maybe that's the one that they steal there.
The game that worried me more than that, or more than Penn State at home. You know what game worries me like the most?
Mm-hmm.
Maryland. Can I tell you why? Dude, Joe, that's a 4-hour time difference. To them, when they're playing at 11, East Coast to West Coast. They're playing at Maryland.
It's a 3-hour time difference. Where'd you get the 4 from? Huh?
Maryland's in the Eastern time zone.
Yeah, it's 3 hours.
No, we're
2 to Central
I'm
time.
I'm in the Central time zone.
Like I've been in multiple time zones in 3 days in the past week.
When you're in New Jersey, you're 4 hours. There's a 4-hour difference. Is there not?
No, are we really? We debate everything. We debate time zones on this show. We're debating the correctness of time zones. It's 3 hours. All I do is communicate.
3 hours. No, we're the Central time zone.
Right, 2 hours.
What time is it where you're at right now?
It is 4:40 in New Jersey right now. Okay. In Maryland, it is 7:30, and it's 6:30 your time.
Regardless, that's a 3-hour time difference.
No, that's not going to be a big deal. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Maryland sucks, man. Maryland's a nothing team. Will that game be close because they're a little hungover having to travel and play them, and maybe it's an early game?
If they play at noon, that's like playing what? For them,
9 a.m.
9 a.m. And they got to travel all the way across the country.
I'm not buying that. I don't think it's going to be that hard of a game.
All right, so
I would argue
if they're 9-3. Okay. To your point, they're going to have to upset LSU, Michigan, Penn State.
I think it's Michigan or Penn State.
Washington or Notre Dame.
Washington's going to.
So how are you going to talk like that about their offense and say that they can be an 8-4, 9-3 team? Because of these teams that you've listed, they're going to have to beat 3 of them.
Because I think a lot of times when I talk,
let me cook. If you're going to say that they're 9-3, that means that they have to win 3 games versus Notre Dame, Washington, Penn State, Michigan, and LSU.
Because Blake, because I come on here and I'm not going to blow every team that we come on here and talk about. If there are deficiencies and question marks, I, as a host, and wanting to create compelling content. Let's peel back the curtain for a second. Create compelling content and going to do the due diligence of making the argument of why things will not work. 3 losses in 2024 is a big deal.
You've made that point. But
for Lincoln Riley, that's a big deal. He's supposed to be one of the best coaches in the sport.
Okay, and I'm asking you I'm asking you, how can you talk about their offense like that and they're not going to be as good as you think that they are, and then you're going to tell me that they're probably going to be a 9-3 team and that they're going to
Lincoln Riley. Because it's Lincoln Riley, and everyone expects Lincoln Riley and USC to be
then that
good offensively.
Miller Moss more than likely has 30+ touchdown passes. That they're running, that they have a pretty decent running game, and defensively that they improved, but not that great.
I'm trying to paint the picture, Blake, that what's going to happen is that they're going to have easy times against the rest of these Big Ten teams, but they're going to really struggle offensively when they get punched in the mouth with teams with good defensive lines and good linebackers and good secondaries like Michigan, like when they play Penn State, like when they play Notre Dame and when they play LSU. That's the picture I'm trying to paint because, frankly, there is a talent gap that is pretty obvious between those top Big Ten teams and the middle of the pack teams. USC's supposed to be top.
I really don't think that there's a massive gap between those 2 teams offensively.
What 2 teams?
USC and Michigan.
That's not what I said. I'm saying that there's a massive gap between the top teams in Michigan and like a team like Nebraska. There's a pretty big gap in talent.
Fair. But we're going to be talking about Michigan, and there's a massive issue about them possibly taking a massive step back offensively.
Yeah, but they have multiple top 50 picks on defense. Like, their defense is going to be insane, and they have an NFL defensive coordinator. They're gonna scratch and claw their way to win most of their football games.
Elk says, hold up, has Blake gone through thinking that the West Coast is 4 hours behind? Actually, yes.
These central time zoners, you guys live in some like bubble that you just...
It legitimately is the best time zone of all the time zones.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number 1 source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, where the game starts.